Welcome back to another episode of NFT Catcher Podcast. We'd like to remind everybody that nothing on the show is meant as financial advice, and to please do your own research. Thank you, and enjoy the show.
Now the subject is NFTs.
They're known as non-fungible tokens, or NFTs.
NFTs are exploding in popularity.
This is a technology that will forever change the way people interact.
So it is happening whether you understand it and like it or not.
This phenomenon is moving. The digital.
You have now joined Jenny from the blockchain and Michael Keene on the NFT Catcher Podcast.
What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the NFT Catcher Podcast with me, Jenny from the blockchain, and my co-host, Michael Keene. Today is our second episode in our new series on Web3 security, and we have brought on FELD from Boring Security to talk about all things Web3 security. So, FELD, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, you came highly requested. I had last month, I was like, who should we bring on? And a lot of people said Simone Online, who we brought on. And then a lot of people said you. So I'm really excited to have you on and just to help educate our audience a little more. I kind of wanted to start with a bit about your background with security and also your story on how you got into the Web3 and NFT space.
Yeah, sure. Background in security, I kind of went through my career like the very traditional IT route, right? Like I was a system admin, help desk person, and then I got an interest in security probably about a decade ago. And then from there, I just never really turned back. So worked at all kinds of different major companies, government agencies. Could never really put down my hacker mindset that I sort of grew up with, tinkering and all of that. And as far as Web3, I think that really kind of aligns with that as well. Like I've also been into crypto for about 10 years. And so, I just love the sort of tinkery, hacky nature of this space. And my intro to Web3 specifically kind of came out of DeFi summer. I was doing a bunch of DeFi yield farming, all that kind of fun stuff. Seeing that there was a lot of security scams going on in that space. And then eventually found my way over to the NFTs through, I would say, I think it was Mooncats. I mean, I always known about like crypto punks and crypto kitties from like 2017, but I think the first like NFT that I bought that wasn't like 0.01, was my Mooncat, I believe. So that was around the beginning of 2021. So I guess almost 2 years in Web3 and NFTs now.
Nice. Wow. Wait, 10 years in crypto. So were you buying Bitcoin at like $50?
Yeah, around sub 200 was some of my best buys.
Nice.
Those were the good days.
That is wild. So, and now you have a Bored Ape. Did you minted apes?
I actually missed the mint. I bought the day of because I was watching you can see kind of like what contracts are taking up the most gas. There's several tools for this. And I was just seeing like this Bored Ape Yacht Club name take up so much gas on the day. And so I was like, what is that? It's not like a DeFi protocol. It's not like so like, what is this? And I had to just go take a look. And as soon as I took a look, something inside me knew like, this is ridiculous. I have to buy one. I don't know why. I don't even know what I'm buying, but I just know in my gut, this is something I need. So I ended up purchasing like kind of a rare, like hip hop jacket one for like 0.4 or so, I believe. And then I listed it the next day and it sold. And I was just like so distraught. And I remember reflecting on that emotion that I had because it's like, I flipped altcoins before and I never really felt anything. I didn't really care. But there's something visceral about NFTs where I was just like, no, I need to have one of these. And so right after that sold, I went right back onto the market and looked to replace it. And that's kind of when I knew not only was Bored Apes onto something special, but I think NFTs in general were probably going to be a lot bigger than people realized. And so Yeah, that's the impetus. Sorry.
You have a sick collection. I actually went to the ape that you advertise on Twitter and went to the wallet, 4014. You have a really nice collection of apes and mutants and other side dogs, like nice ones. It's really cool. Good to see.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, I curate it heavily. A lot of the collectors really. I'm like the collector's collector. You know what I mean? Like there's like a comics comic. So I think
most see all your apes have the merch hats, right? Yeah. That's dope. That's really. I mean, you have a sick collection. I'm drooling right now. I'm a little jealous. I got to admit, it's nice.
Yeah, I mean, I'm no like machi big brother or anything like that, but you know.
You're in a good spot. You're in a good spot.
That's I like it.
Yeah, I mean, doodles, cool cats. You know, a lot of good stuff. Moonbirds, good stuff.
Yeah, I like being part of like every major community just to kind of see what's going on. And you know, as part of my project as well, it helps to have like a foothold on the entire space, on the entire landscape.
Yep.
Yeah, we got to talk about Boring Security because you are the founder of Boring Security. And I'm curious if you can kind of tell us more about what is Boring Security.
Yeah. Well, Boring Security kind of came out of me being, so for those that don't know, I'm a moderator in the Bored Ape Yacht Club Discord. And so it kind of came from the work I was doing there, just like tracking and looking at scammers who are like stealing apes and this, that, and the other thing. And I just kept thinking to myself, man, there's got to be a way that we can do this better. Like there's got to be some technical solution we can implement to make it so this stops happening. Quickly kind of found out though, that really there's two things that needed to happen. And a lot of it was UI UX improvements on like the wallet and tooling level and like, you know, platform level. But then secondarily, there really needed to be kind of like an education piece for this as well. Like, you know, people don't realize this is still very much the wild, wild west. You know, self-custodying your assets isn't something people are used to. I think in general, especially coming into NFTs, right? Like people who have been into crypto for a long time or crypto native, this isn't super, you know, new to them. They've all kind of had to do it before, but, you know, smart contracts and so many other risks, factors and things that play now, you know, self-custodying, how to do that properly is definitely a challenge. And so we quickly realized maybe the technical solution wasn't the way to get a quick win in this space, but maybe we focus on this education piece. One of our co-founders, Ashura, who kind of helped get this project off the ground, already was teaching this sort of a class every once in a while in the Bored Ape Yacht Club Discord. And I found it really fascinating. Like I was like, wow, this is a really great thing. I think more people should do this. How do we like take this and, you know, build some rails around it and get more people through it? And then, you know, how do we provably get them through it? And, you know, all this other stuff. So it kind of started there. You know, the need to, you know, how do we stop scammers from being so successful? And so, yeah, that was how it started.
That's huge. That's very helpful. As we know, a lot of Bored Ape holders have been targeted, you know, because they're one of the most highly valuable PFP project NFTs that people could have. And yeah, a lot of different scams, a lot of different ways people have been scammed, you know, especially Bored Apes, or at least maybe that's just what makes the big news, you know? Mm-hmm. And so what are some of the most common scams that you see people fall for time and time again?
Yeah, we go through these quite a bit of these in our classes to really give people an understanding of how they're being targeted. One thing I will say is that I think people are not used to being targeted by social engineers that are, you know, this highly skilled and this motivated. Right. So we think of the average person's brush with scammers as like, you know, you getting a random phone call or like even an automated phone call or scam emails, right? Trying to get you to, but very few people are actually targeted in the real world, unless you're like some executive for a company or something like this, right? So NFTs kind of flip the script on that, and Bored Apes in particular, because of their, you know, high values. The value went so high so quickly So I think people just like, there was no adjusting period for like, now I don't have, valuable assets and now I do. It all happened very, very fast. And so I would say the biggest things come from those social engineers that are way more skilled and better at earning your trust and empathy. These are people out of Canada and like the US, right? Like this isn't Nigerian princes trying to scam you here. Like these are very, very highly motivated, experienced folks who are doing this. And so I would say, yeah, the biggest ones are from social engineers and just really getting you to do things you shouldn't do. In our class, we say there are three things the social engineer is going to try to get you to do. They're either going to try to get you to download or compromise your computer, download malware or compromise your computer in some way. They're going to try to get your seed phrase from you. And then the third thing they're going to try to get you to do is to get you to sign some transaction you shouldn't. And so I would say in 2022, that last one has been really the biggest vector for most folks. You see it time and time again on Twitter. People signing away assets without realizing what they're signing. But we still see quite a bit of seed phrase compromises, a lot less than in 2021. But it still happens. There was a Bored Ape that was lost just in two, in fact, yesterday that were from seed phrase compromises. So that is still very, very common as well.
So seed phrase compromises, that's where people are just actually typing in their seed phrase into something?
Not necessarily, right? So sometimes that's what they're doing. Other times they're downloading a malicious file, they're screen sharing, they're letting people take control of their machine, pretending to be support, any number of things. A lot of the malware going around now too, like if you execute something, one of the things that got Fuckrender back in the day was this .scr file, right? And so it seemed innocuous enough, but they clicked on it, and then lo and behold, their seed phrase was compromised. So we tell people kind of in the class that like your seed phrase is 1 0-day exploit away from being, from you losing all of your assets if you store it on a software wallet. So we really push the hardware wallet narrative, so much so that those companies should be paying us. Dang it, maybe someday. But it's, we find that to be really the first step in taking security seriously. There's so many people who say, well, I just don't go to dumb websites and I just don't do dumb things, so I'm not going to get my seed phrase compromised. That attitude is pervasive. And I think it's just from people who don't understand how exploits happen, how new security vulnerabilities are found. I will say, as a part of an organization that has found insane bugs on some of the top, most largest organizations that secure the world's data, you would be, if you have seen some of the things I've seen, you wouldn't trust your seed phrase to a software wallet either.
What have you seen? What's some of the spiciest stuff you've seen that's just like, can't believe it?
Unfortunately, a lot of that it was found under NDA. But I can say some stuff was with Google, in fact, basically not authenticating properly, some organizational stuff that we've kind of come across. Yeah. I can't get too much into the details, but it was very surprising. Microsoft as well. I used to actually work for Microsoft, so I've seen more than my fair share of scary, how did this get pushed into production code, that is just always surprising.
That's crazy. And real quick, while we're talking about seed phrases, I've had this question because we saw a few weeks ago how a lot of Solana seed phrases were compromised from whatever that wallet was, Slope wallet, I believe. So yep. with MetaMask and with our wallets, so I'm sure that they're safe, like the seed phrases, but like for some reason I just feel like that what if like everyone's seed phrase got taken? Is that possible? Like, so we have our hard wallet, and I'm told the seed phrase is stored on there, but like if you lose that, you could type your seed phrase in somewhere else and it matches it up, and you get access to your wallet. So like, Does that make sense what I'm asking? Is it possible that MetaMask seed phrases can be compromised out of our control in a huge batch?
Yeah, that is so a lot of the impetus for boring security is to try to stop these systemic events from happening by, really trying to push people and projects towards better practices. So selfishly, I want boring security to grow quite large so we can have influence in the security practices of larger organizations. We can put pressure on people like MetaMask, but also like projects who are doing airdrops and forcing people to interact with, third-party websites with their high-value NFTs in that wallet, right? So what we want to do is really support, a move away from that. And then, so to answer your question, is that possible? It is less likely because MetaMask does a lot of cool things to secure the seed phrase, probably that I can't imagine that the Slope wallet was doing. But again, with software, you're always just one 0-day exploit. And I will define 0 day. 0 day is something that's like unknown. So something new that doesn't have a solution yet. So so sorry for using jargon there, but yeah, you're essentially just one brand new discovered exploit away from, this potential, right? So maybe there is some crazy, I'm sure the folks here, maybe you've heard of ransomware. It's been in the news quite a lot in the past few years.
Yep.
It's not unfathomable to think there would be some sort of ransomware type thing that affects crypto wallets through one of these like new vectors, right? And so you could end up with a systemic issue of maybe like these wallets being targeted by these bots. Maybe a site that we all interact with frequently gets compromised, like OpenSea, for example, and maybe it downloads this malware on our machine. Any number of ways, right? And in those instances, although it's unlikely that the space has done a lot to try to prevent something like this from happening, that could lead us down a very, very scary systemic, thousands of wallets getting compromised type thing. So yeah, that's a great question.
So does MetaMask store them centrally?
No, that does not happen. One thing MetaMask will do if you're on Apple devices is it does back it up to iCloud, I believe. It is encrypted, however, with whatever password, I believe whatever password you set. But again, if your iCloud gets hacked, that could be a problem as well, especially if you have a weak password or what have you. So
what should you do if you have MetaMask on your phone right now? What would you suggest to be as safe as possible? Because just deleting MetaMask probably doesn't solve that if you already entered your seed phrase.
Yeah, I mean, well, firstly, I would say if you're securing high value assets, right, consider getting a hardware wallet and then only backing that hardware wallet up offline. For folks who want to use, like I used to have like, a half an ETH or so on a mobile wallet in case I'm out with friends and I wanted to pay them in crypto, or I saw something that I needed to react on very quickly or to get ETH sent out quickly. In those cases, I don't think it's worth being overly paranoid, so long as like it wouldn't be the end of the world for you if you lost that hot wallet.
Okay, sure.
But there, I do suggest for most folks, they probably aren't aware that their seed phrase is being backed up on iCloud for those who are on Apple devices. So at least knowing that that's a thing and knowing that you can disable MetaMask from backing up to iCloud is valuable, I think. And you can make the decision on whether or not you want that to happen. But just know that whatever funds are on that hot wallet are a lot more vulnerable than whatever you would have on a hardware wallet. How
would you disable that?
Yeah, I'm actually not an Apple user, but so I can't tell you the exact flow. But we have, in our Discord we had somebody. There's a security thread on this. It's like basically you go to like settings, cloud sync apps, and then you select MetaMask as the application, and then you just select disable, and so that'll stop that from syncing. The exact flow is you could find on our Discord. Somebody's made a thread about it fairly recently, actually.
And let me just plug really quick. We'll put this in the show notes, but also if you're listening to this, make sure you're following FELD on Twitter. His handle is FELD 4014. And also Boring Sec DAO. So this is Boring Security that he keeps talking about. If you follow it on Twitter, you can also see the link to their Discord and all that. But it's Boring Sec, SEC DAO, DAO. So make sure you guys check that out. I actually just joined the Boring Security Discord the other day, and I've been, kind of looking through it a bit. So yeah, I remember learning way back with crypto, people would say, oh, don't ever do stuff on your phone. And so I kind of carried that over to NFTs. But I think a lot of people do some things on their phone. One of the things I do on my phone, I guess in relation to NFTs, it's like the only thing is token proof. And I'm kind of curious your thoughts on token proof. And I guess, is there any way, how does like the token proof security work? And is there any way to kind of get scammed out of your NFTs through that?
Yeah, great question. Actually, token proof is great. We love those guys. We've done classes for their community, really close with the folks over there. So I really love the product that they're building. I think being able to take NFT ownership proof out into the real world is super, super valuable. And, having to do that with some sort of solution where you actually have to carry your wallet around or something like that is crazy, right? So I think token proof is quite good on a number of reasons. One is the initial setup, you only have to do one time, and all that it requires is like a gasless signature, I believe. Basically just saying, yep, I own this wallet. And then from then on, it knows what assets you have in that wallet, and you can sort of use that to sign up for like token proof things. And one really cool thing about token proof too is like we tell people like, hey, if you're ever at these events, you never know if somebody could be sneaking around to like an NFT event trying to get you to open a QR code that you shouldn't. In general, obviously, that's not going to happen. People, scammers aren't out in full force in person as much, but we have seen cases of it where malicious QR codes can happen. And so people are like, well, what if I didn't
think about that?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, like, what if I think we're going to see it more, but we'll see. It hasn't been a huge systemic issue as of yet, but with token proof, it's kind of cool because they have their own sort of format. And you're scanning with the token proof app. So, and then it's, never taking you outside of the token proof app. So that's kind of a cool thing too, instead of just like, taking pictures of QR codes everywhere to get into events or through any other means, you can just do it through token proof. So that's kind of cool as well. So I wouldn't super worry about token proof, but if you're ever in a situation where you go to their website and there's some transaction asking you for gas or something like this, well, maybe token proof has been compromised and you wouldn't want to do that. So we teach in the class too, like, maybe some signs you could look out for if something's been compromised or if you're on a website or something that you shouldn't be. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
And MetaMask has gotten a little bit better, right? About telling you what you're agreeing to now. It's not all like cryptic. It'll say like allow all for a certain collection and things like that.
Yeah. And also, I think one thing that a lot of folks don't realize is their transaction insights. So you can actually, when a MetaMask transaction pops up, there's actually a second tab called the data tab. And that's actually like really handy because of the information that pops up there will sort of show you what the transaction is actually doing as well. So we have an example in our class where we have like one NFT being transferred to another wallet. It's like, hey, can you guys see what this is doing? And that's something that can be trusted as well, that it is what it is, doing what it says it's doing, because it's sort of, it basically sees what is possible on the contract and what you're sending to it and can sort of decode all of that information on the fly. So that's really nice. That's a really nice feature. I think more people should use that feature as well.
How much are these classes to take, by the way? Just side note.
Free.
Oh, shoot, let's go.
Yeah, we do all these classes for free. We teach 8 a month. 2 of them are completely public, so anybody can join. And the other 6 we do in partnership with our partners and other projects to sort of teach their community as well. So we're really trying to be a public good in the space. We're there always 24/7 to answer your questions, security questions that you have about security. We're there to alert you about the newest scams in the space, the newest scammer tactics that may be going around, major changes to protocols that people should look out for, things of that nature. And we have a second class coming right around the corner next month. So folks who have taken the first class are eligible to take the second one, also free. So yeah.
That is so awesome. And if any of our listeners decide to, check out the Discord and end up taking a class, let them know that you came from the NFT Catcher Pod. Come on, represent. That's super cool. I'm like, okay, I gotta get on this next class. I gotta figure out when it is. I want to ask about, like, for somebody new getting into the Web3 space, looking to start buying and selling NFTs, or maybe they're an artist setting up, their own MetaMask account, wanting to mint their own art. What are some first step basic security practices that you always like to preach to new people?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. We're trying to. I'm actually in the process of making an infographic with a graphic designer friend of mine. So we're gonna push that out for like here's like the absolute need to know. But one thing I say, and I think Simona probably covered this as well. I know you had her, but basically artists, it can be a little bit difficult because sometimes when artists jump into the space, they start building up a brand on all these platforms with one wallet address. But then, then the thought of switching that, or maybe importing that into a hardware wallet, which isn't really recommended that you do, it can create kind of problems down the line. So I think getting a hardware wallet sooner than later is probably the first thing. But secondarily, also just knowing about sort of how scammers operate in the space. So I usually, if I'm getting my new friends into the space, I say, hey, look, you're going to have a lot of people DMing you on Twitter, Discord. They're going to be telling you about giveaways. They're going to be telling you about secret mints. They're going to be telling you about this new platform. They might try to make friends with you, and they might seem legit at first, but so it can be really hard to like pick apart the real people from the potential scammers in the space as somebody who is completely green to it. So yeah, I say, get a hardware wallet, set up your identities through that. I always, when I'm with a friend, I always say, we're going to set up a few wallets. We're going to set up subdomains in ENS names. So I like to dive in real deep right away. Just like, all right. But I think people get it, right? They're like, okay, my identity is, Jay Sutto, or, whatever it is at, .eth, right? But then if you want to have different wallet addresses, you could be like, this is my vault wallet dot whatever. And so I usually recommend people set up a few different ones there. We can get into detail about exactly what goes on in each if we want to go down that road. But so basically setting up multiple wallets, getting a hardware wallet, and then just like talking a little bit about how scammers can really screw you over, and really just to read what you sign. And that's like the first step. So, it's hard to, that's the struggle though. It's really hard to give people enough information in like a 5-minute soundbite that is adequate for people getting into the space. So honestly, what I've been telling people nowadays is just, hey, come take our class. There's also 2 other folks kind of doing similar stuff to what we're doing. So take a few classes. Ledger Quest is just around the corner. There's all kinds of resources in the space, but learn about scams, learn about hardware wallets, and learn about how approvals work and signatures and all that stuff. And those 3 things will take you very far.
Build a foundation of your knowledge before you jump in and start doing things, right? That's very important.
Yeah, and ask questions.
Yeah, ask questions.
Well, yeah.
100%. Yeah, I've had some people reach out being like, how can I, like, if my NFTs are on OpenSea, how do I move them to Looks Rare? And it was like, oh, it's like, they were like, I know this is dumb, but like, can you just help me? Like, I'm embarrassed to like ask this. And it was like, even simple things where it's like, maybe it makes sense to you. Okay, the marketplace like OpenSea and Looks Rare, that's just where you display your NFTs. They're not actually on OpenSea or on Looks Rare. You can display them on different marketplaces. But, some people don't know that. And it's like there's a lot of basic things that I think we also take for granted in this space that we've just naturally learned.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, oh my God, there's so much to know. There's so much you don't know. And even people that have been in the space for years, they're always learning. There's always new things to learn. So,
and that's a real challenge too, right? Like that's something that we struggle with at Boring Security, because it's like, we spend the first 20 minutes of the class talking about what wallets are and how to secure your seed phrase and all of this stuff, and it's like, I would say probably half the students that come through don't really need 99% of all the sentences uttered in that first 20 minutes, but it really helps to sort of set that baseline. But even that baseline that we think, is fairly basic, I still think is a little bit too advanced for somebody who has not done anything in the space at all. Luckily, usually when we're doing recruiting, we're recruiting from like other projects. So these are people who have bought NFTs before and have been in the NFT community enough to be, plugged into Discord and Twitter to know to jump into these classes. So, but how to actually take somebody from the ground up, it can be a difficult challenge. I think other projects are probably better at tackling that issue, certainly than we are. But we like to consider ourselves and hopefully be a piece of that puzzle. As the greater onboarding conversation, for folks new into the space.
Yeah, and huge props to what you guys are doing over at Boring Security. I mean, that's just super generous of you guys to really have that focus on education and really just wanting to help people. That's huge. So thank you for everything you do. I did want to get into the wallets because you were kind of like, oh, if you want to get into it, I do want to get into it. Burner, Vault, Main. Can we talk about the different types of wallets people should be having and why and what they're used for?
Yeah, sure. I think an important distinction before we get into any of that is to just mention that when we talk about multiple wallets, I think people get a little bit confused. They think, wait, so you're telling me to buy a hardware wallet, but now you're telling me to buy 3 of them or something like this, right? And so I think it's a real important distinction to say that, like, actually, your hardware wallet comes with, thousands of addresses, in fact, that you're able to utilize straight out of the gate. And so, like, when you go to connect your hardware wallet, you notice it asks you to choose an address that you'd like to interact with MetaMask with, for example. So I think it's important to sort of set that ground level so people realize, like, I can connect multiple addresses from one hardware wallet protected by the same seed phrase, and it's connected through MetaMask, but it's still secured by my ledger, my Trezor, my grid lattice, whatever it is. And so I think it's important to kind of start there. But then from there, like, once you kind of understand that, realizing that when you do things like setting up an approval, right? So I think this is a kind of a really important piece of smart contracts, right? Is this idea that you can give platforms like OpenSea and Looks Rare and X2Y2 the ability to sort of pull assets out of your wallet, but the fact is they still remain in your wallet. And they pull those assets out of your wallet based on the parameters that you agree to in the smart contract. So let's say, for example, you're selling an NFT, you're selling it for $100. It's listed on there until such time which it is purchased by somebody else, that NFT remains in your wallet. But you need to open up those approvals for that to happen. Approvals are great. They make the world go round in smart contracts. They make the world go round in Web3 and NFTs, but they can also get you into some trouble. You might approve things to a bad contract. You might approve something and then later maybe you accidentally sign something that can be used against you, or something like this. So the setup that we recommend most people take is probably a little bit more conservative than what some other folks you may have seen on Twitter. I've seen some Twitter threads about recommending you should have 5 wallets, 7 wallets, stuff like that. We recommend people have 3. And the real uses of them is you want to have one wallet that has all of your high value assets, that never interacts with any smart contracts, that you never list on a platform, you never do any of that stuff. That's what we're going to call your vault wallet. So having your high value assets in there, you create sort of this mental separation of like, okay, I know I'm never going to go to sketchy websites and connect this particular wallet address. I'm never going to create approvals on this particular wallet address. All I'm ever going to do from this wallet address is send and receive NFTs to it and do a gasless signature to prove that you own assets. And then the second wallet is your sort of main, I think what you're referring to is your main wallet. We call this the sell wallet, right? So this is where if you have high value assets that you want to like list for sale, for example, on these marketplaces. We also say if you're an artist, this would be considered your main wallet as well. So this is what you're selling all of your assets out of. Where possible, I think you try to avoid doing anything else outside of these like walled gardens of OpenSea and Foundation and these known platforms, just to reduce your risk for those assets. And then thirdly, we call this the Mint wallet, the degen wallet, the burner wallet, whatever you want to call it, is essentially where you go and you mint new projects or you go and interact with things that you're not super familiar with. This keeps a relatively low amount of funds in it at any given time, to really just ensure that like, even if you sign something malicious that you didn't realize, or even if you made some mistakes, the amount of money you can lose on that wallet is fairly limited to just the activity that you want to do. I myself keep about I think right now I have, let's see, I have it open, 0.54 ETH in my hot wallet. So that's the wallet I go and interact with all the crazy stuff that I'm not too sure about.
That would be considered a lot of ETH to some people. I'm like, I have 2 ETH. That is a lot. But yes, I want to see if Michael has a question. I feel like I've been asking a lot of questions.
No, this is great. I'm just chilling, listening to all the knowledge being dropped. I would maybe, I was looking and it looks like you guys cover a lot of Discord. You said you were a Discord mod for the Bored Apes. As far as from like a Discord creator, what are some kind of high level things you can let people know? I know it's a lot about the hierarchy and the permissions. Are there any things that people should be super careful of? And like, if you're somebody that's starting up a Discord or has a Discord that you're trying to build, what would you tell to those people?
Yeah, I would say 2 things really. Is one is to really be very judicious and follow the sort of model of least privilege. So, your mod shouldn't have the ability to do webhooks, like things like this, right? Like there's also some like a little bit of esoteric ones, like you shouldn't allow private threads. You shouldn't allow threads really in general in Discord. I think it can be a big security issue because you can have, if one of the accounts, like say a moderator's account gets hacked and they're able to create these like threads, right? They can create a private thread with everybody except for the other mods. And so, the only people who are seeing it is like, so it can be really pernicious, right? Like these like private threads and public threads and stuff. So there's some things you just want to keep off. We could go into the gambit, but I think like permissions are really a big one. When you're creating your permission structure, you want to have everything be inherited from the lowest possible role on up, right? So maybe the everyone role has literally no permissions, but then that role that they get as soon as they verify the CAPTCHA and all that, whatever, maybe that role gives them some permissions. And then every other thing that you build on top of from there, you don't implicitly put on all those other permissions on those roles. You just add the particular ones that you need in addition to what's below those roles. And it's just a good like mental model to sort of start building your permission structure that way. Another thing is be very careful with every bot that you add. A lot of bots don't need as many permissions as they say they do. One really popular example is Collabland. It actually no longer requires administrative privileges and a couple of other, I believe it doesn't actually require the managed channel permissions anymore either. So there's a couple things it doesn't actually require that you can remove as well. And so when you're adding bots to the channel, be really sure that like, okay, does this need webhooks? Does this need admin privileges? Does it need, this, that, and the other thing? Also, shout out to ServerForge, because they created a game that basically lets you go through and take a test to become a Discord guardian, right? So it's like this like RPG. It's based in Google Forms. It's really cute. That sort of lets you go through and shows you all of these potential problems, right? Like, somebody with a fake bot tag, for example, pretending to be a real bot, a trusted bot, all these things. Like you're going through all these scenarios, and you have like life points, and like it's really cute. So I can share that link with y'all later. I highly recommend if you're an admin, a mod, project owner, give that game a run through. It's really well made, I think.
Nice.
I'm actually in ServerForge, and that reminds me, we definitely do have to bring someone to talk about Discord security, because that's a whole beast in and of itself. There's like so much with it, and yeah, just with all the permissions. It's crazy how much you can configure within Discord. Discord's incredible, but if it's not used correctly, there's just so much to know with Discord.
Pretty much every major project has had their Discord hacked at one point or another at this point, including the apes.
Yeah. I would say Plum Furno, she is like she calls herself the Discord security matron, and I would say that's a pretty accurate title for her. So if you want to connect there, I'd love to put you in touch with her. And cool. she's an integral part of that Discord game as well. So I think Discord security, like people, because in our class, it's hard to get into it a lot, right? Like there's so many little things we can mention. And the biggest thing is just like, if you keep your DMs off and you don't go to outside sites much, or if you do it in a very limited fashion, Collabland, these sorts of things, you should be mostly okay, provided you're not getting social engineered in your DMs, right? But like, it gets a lot more tricky than that. Like, it gets into like, actually, your auth token is very easy to steal from Discord because it wasn't really built with security in mind. This allows people to steal some token on your machine that bypasses, that steals your account and bypasses 2FA. Like there's all these things that like, once you start getting into the nitty gritty and like these like bookmark scams and everything else, like there's actually a lot more to know about securing Discord and Discord security, even for an end user, than just turning off your DMs. But there's just so much to cover in a 101 class for us that's kind of where we leave it. But 102, there's a few more things that we talk about. But yeah, we really just talk about a few more things that we recommend the Discord game, because it's just, I can't necessarily build a class for Discord admins, but it's helpful for folks who are doing that, I think.
Does Collabland ever scare you, or do you'll connect to get the roles in different servers?
Yeah, Collabland's been really good lately. So what I tell people with that Vault wallet, right? So that wallet that has no approvals, you don't do any smart contract interactions, it's actually safe to sign things from. So when we were talking about token proof and all that stuff earlier on, there's always this like, well, if you don't understand what you're signing, don't sign it. And that's true. And that's especially true if you have a bunch of approvals open. In December, there was this big hack on the Discord or on OpenSea, where it was essentially the create order flow was being hijacked by these websites. Essentially, because really all you need to do to create an order on an on an asset that has an open approval on it is just a gasless signature, right? So you could think of like listing an NFT on OpenSea. You don't need to do any additional approvals or additional things once you've approved the collection once, right? So these scammers were sort of taking advantage of that. You could do a sort of gasless signature to list your NFT. And what it would do is it would list it for 0.0001 ETH in a private sale to these addresses, right? So that's why we say like it can be really dangerous to do gasless signatures in some sense, especially if you have open approvals, but provided that it's just plain text and you don't have any open approvals on those assets, you're good to go. So no, connecting to Collabland doesn't cause me any anguish because I know if it's gonna request me to pay gas, then the site's already compromised or something like that. So it's a good mental check to just be like, oh, I'm going to Premint, I'm going to Collabland, I'm going to these sites. It's asking me to do a transaction. Nope, the front end got hacked. All right, we're done. So that's how it scares me, is that people don't understand that delineation. But once you understand that, it makes going to these sites a lot less scary. So that's part of what we teach in the class too, is just to be like, you hear a lot of fear mongering, like if you accept this WETH offer on this, airdropped NFT, it's going to drain your wallet, right? Well, that's not how this works. You're safe on OpenSea. That's not going to happen. So we kind of try to clear up a lot of misinformation in the space as well with our classes.
Cool. Very cool. It's good to know because I do Collabland a decent amount.
Yeah, and it's nice. You don't even have to sign anymore. You just like go to the website.
Right.
You click the wallet address and then it's like, boom, no MetaMask transaction required. And I think that's smart.
Yeah. And then what does it do? It knows if you move the asset somewhere, if it sells, and you just lose the roll.
That's right. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, it updates periodically. And then I think the Discord server admin can choose to like let the roles update periodically. Most do.
Okay.
So
got it. Cool.
Sweet. Do we have any last minute questions for FELD before we wrap this up?
The only other thing I had on my list to kind of ask about, and I'm not sure if you're an expert or if there's really a way to talk about it, but like minting from contract, is it a good idea? And what should you do to make that happen?
Yeah, so that's actually something we cover in our 102 class by popular demand. And
okay.
I do think it's a good idea, but there's an issue there in that the way that a lot of these projects do their whitelists require this like you to paste in like this Merkle proof, right? And so like that's a super long like thing usually that they don't give out. Sometimes they will if you ask for it. It wouldn't be malicious for them to give it out or anything. It just verifies that you are able to mint from the whitelist. But so that's a little bit of a wrinkle, but there's a huge benefit. There's two huge benefits actually from minting from contract, is that a lot of these people who are building websites, right? They might not be doing it in the most secure way. Maybe they're being really loose with the credentials. And so if it's a hyped mint coming out, scammers are going to go there and they're going to see if they can hack the website to, present you with a dangerous transaction prompt request when you go to the website. So, in theory, you should only be minting with your mint wallet. And so that way only those funds are at risk. But minting from the contract is nice because, unless Etherscan itself got compromised, which, God forbid that happens, but it's a much safer way to mint the assets. And so the trick there is really just, connect your wallet, go to this like mint from, go to the contract, and then usually you got to go to write contract on Etherscan. And then you got to do a little bit of math. Unfortunately, it's unavoidable. Depending on how many you want to mint. So let's say the mint price is 0.05, you want to mint 3, so 0.15 total. So it's going to ask you the payment amount. So you enter in 0.15, and then the quantity is 3, and then you just hit write, and then it'll prompt you up just like any other mint transaction that you would do from the website. Two benefits here. You have one, like I said, if that website's compromised, you get to completely sidestep that whole piece of it. Secondarily, it tends to be faster. So in case the website's getting hammered, and like, you know, goes down and they didn't buy enough bandwidth to handle it, or they don't have a good way to mitigate denial of service attacks, right? So that's everybody's hitting the refresh button and can't get in. You completely sidestep that. So yeah, it can be a good way to do it. But yeah, anyway, minting from contracts. If you can do it, do it. Highly suggest it. We actually the 102 claim, we're going to try to have people mint from the contract as part of the test, right? So it's like you get it when you get the NFT when you mint it from the contract. So that'll be fun.
Ooh, that's smart. That's fun. Yeah. Okay, Feld, thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been a really enjoyable episode for me personally, and I'm sure our listeners really enjoyed this episode as well. I mean, Web3 security is so important, and it's always great, even if you already know this stuff, you know, just to relearn things as well and hear it, you know, repeatedly, and, you know, to help you remember. But yeah, thank you for coming on. Is there any last minute words of advice, I guess, that you'd want to leave our listeners with?
Not really. I would just say slow down and join us in the Boring Security Discord. We want to create an environment where anybody can come in and ask a question, and nobody is going to ridicule you. Like if you came in and you asked that OpenSea looks rare question, you know, how do I move from one to the other? Nobody's going to make fun of you. We try to create a really inclusive space for all people in our Discord. So, I think people are afraid to ask stupid questions. So even if you don't ask it to us, it's good to have like a little Web3 Sherpa guide to sort of help you. So, you know, ask your friends or whatever, make sure you're not doing something you shouldn't. Everybody, like, don't let your ego get in the way of potentially losing all of your assets in the space, right? So better safe than sorry, generally. If you don't understand something, try to figure out what it is before you go full steam ahead. So yeah. Other than that, thank you so much for inviting me. This is it's always fun to talk to people about this stuff. So
yeah, I can tell you. Oh, go ahead, Michael.
I'm sorry. I was just gonna say it was a pleasure. I learned a lot, and I'm definitely gonna check out your Discord. And it's really cool what you guys are doing with the free classes and trying to educate the community. So I wish you the best of luck. You ever need any help from us, let us know. But it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we can tell you're very passionate about this. Thank you to everybody listening to this episode. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and we will catch you in the next one. Peace.
Thank you for tuning in to the NFT Catcher Podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and learned something new about the exciting world of NFTs. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to subscribe to our podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you really love what you're hearing, please leave us a rating and review on your favorite platform. If you want to stay up to date with the latest news and insights from the NFT space, be sure to follow us on all the socials at NFT Catcher Pod. You can follow Jennifer at Jennifer_pseudo and Michael at NFTicket. I'm your producer, Andy, and I'm at AJC254. Our theme song's by It's Just Los. We always appreciate your feedback and support, which helps us reach more people and bring you informative and engaging content about NFTs. We look forward to bringing you more great NFT content in future episodes. Thanks for listening. Peace.